Welcome back. All right, so we're going to talk about the Western Conference first. I'm going to do a video on the Eastern Conference as well. So how did the Western Conference do at the deadline? So I'm only counting trades over the last couple of weeks. So the Bo Horvat trade isn't on the board, but I'm going to have a chat about it. The names in black are just names that are required. I'm not getting into all the trades and all the draft picks and all that. I just want to look at where teams are at and how I feel they did. We'll start off. We got the Pacific here, Central here. We'll start with the Pacific. Anaheim picks up Brock McGinn. They pick up Schuster. Sakura, they picked up yesterday. I believe it was yesterday. Josiah Slavin, Nikita Nestorenko. So what we get here is we get some depth players who can play for them down the stretch. This is a team that's building for the future and really, crossing their fingers that they're going to win the draft lottery. I think Anaheim did pretty well. I think, if we're talking about which teams did or didn't do well, Anaheim did move Klingberg. They don't get as much back as they would have wanted to. But, yeah, some of these teams at the deadline didn't get quite what they wanted for their assets. Calgary. Nick Ritchie joins the team. Stetcher joins the team. Dryden Hunt will play in the minors. I like what they do here. I think Stetcher's a good addition to the blue line. We'll see how he does in Calgary. I think he's had an okay season with the Coyotes. My first thought with putting this board together was, okay, so did they play the Ducks again? Because could we have Zegras against Stetcher again? Because, anyways. So that being out there, the one thing with Calgary, of course, they're kind of in no man's land. They're 5 points out of the playoffs. I don't think they make it, but they're not far enough out that they could sell everybody off. And even if they wanted to, it would have been a last-minute switch, and it's not that easy to make that last-minute switch. Edmonton, Bukestad added. Good, solid addition there. Cam Dineen also comes out in that deal. Ekholm added. I love the Ekholm addition. I really do. And Patrick Puistula, who is Finnish, and I will figure out the name before he reaches the NHL. But he was picked up, of course, in the Puljujarvi deal. So they get Puljujarvi out. If that's been a distraction, it's gone. I think they improved their blue line. I think Bukestad's a solid addition up front. LA gets Nate Schnarr in a minor deal. McEwen, solid pickup. Brendan Lemieux going the other way in that one. I like Gavrikov. The one I don't have on the board, and I should. And I knew there was one I was missing. Because obviously, Korpisalo and all the controversy around that trade. Solid trade. Just from a realistic trade perspective, do we want that to have gone down differently? Absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, Korpisalo and Gavrikov, I think, are solid additions. Should make LA's chances of getting somewhere in the playoffs a little better. And the rights to Eric Portillo coming over from Buffalo in a trade that I had backwards, and I apologize for that. So LA gets some solid additions here. I think that's going to improve their blue line and improve their goaltending. And really, we know they can score. We know the Kings have a really good, solid offense, pretty balanced. And I think they addressed what they needed to. So if I'm going to talk about a team that I think did very well, LA is on the board for that. I think they did. They were one of the better teams in the West at the deadline. San Jose, a lot of additions here, a lot through the Meyer trade. But you've got Jacob Peterson who came in a minor deal today. Peterson out of the Dallas organization. It was time for him to move on. So I think, if they can get the value out of Peterson, at times when he was with the Dallas Stars, he looked pretty good. The rights to Arvid Henriksen, the rights to Henry Thrun were acquired as well. Of course, Andreas Janssen. You've got Zetterlund there. I think Zetterlund has some potential to be a really good bottom six guy for them. Hotiuk came over in that deal as well from the New Jersey Devils. I think Hotiuk played well enough in the 10 games he played. I think it was 10 games for New Jersey. And Mahatma Dulin, the rights to Mahatma Dulin, who's expected to come over. So San Jose, a lot of players there and a lot of names. Now, how many of them actually end up playing for San Jose, say, next season? We'll see. We'll see if Hotiuk makes the lineup. We'll see if Mahatma Dulin comes over and makes the lineup. And what kind of role Zetterlund plays, if they can get maybe more offense out of Zetterlund. So we'll see. Seattle was idle, and there's a lot of discussions about Seattle. So there are some that think that Seattle should have done something. I saw criticism that they didn't address their goaltending and defense issues. They can't. They are not in a position to address their issues either in goal or on the blue line at this point. You need to have the cap space. And then for Seattle, you also have to have some concern about trading draft picks for, say, next year or the year after. And for Seattle, they're pretty solidly in a playoff spot. However, I think if you're Ron Francis, you have to say, you know what? I don't want to make a trade, mess things up, end up with us outside the draft or outside of the playoffs and give that team a better draft pick than what I think they're getting. So Seattle being idle, I don't think is necessarily a big deal. I don't think that submarines their season. The Canucks picking up Kravtsov, good move. Picking up Hronik, a bit of a head scratcher. And then other news today. So this is coming out from more and more reporters, more and more insiders, that they wouldn't take draft picks for Garland. They're not interested in draft picks for Miller. They want NHLers back for both, leading to a belief that it's a retool, it's a quick turnaround that the Canucks are looking for rather than actually committing to a rebuild. And that's problematic. This is a team that has been built badly. This Canucks team is already over next year's salary cap. And what did Patrick Allvin say today? Oh, we're not worried about it. We'll get underneath the cap. And it really has Benning vibes to it. And I find that somewhat upsetting. Because we were told for years, it's no big deal. It'll be fine. It'll be good. It'll be fine. Nah, be fine. Why'd you pick up OEL? He's a number one defenseman. We believe he's a number one defenseman, and that was exactly what we needed. Okay, so yeah, the Canucks kind of, the more things change. And I know Aquilini gets a lot of the blame on this. Maybe some of it goes to Aquilini, but if they're not willing to take draft picks to make cap space for players, this is not going to go well, because that's all you're going to get offered for guys like Garland and Miller who've had down years. Now, Allvin also saying he didn't have a solid offer from Miller, that he got a call this morning, and that it wasn't a serious one. My guess is that's where somebody said, look, we'll give you picks, and whether it was Pittsburgh or it wasn't, somebody said, we'll give you picks, and he said no. So that's a problem right there. And if they're not willing to take back picks on Garland, I'm bewildered, absolutely bewildered, because it's not like Garland's had a great year. His cap hit is high for the production he's had for Vancouver this year. But again, if you think your team is close, you're not willing to trade that asset for draft picks. Vegas. I'm wearing Vegas because I like what they did here. I like adding Mayo, depth defenseman out of Arizona. I like adding Jonathan Quick without sacrificing anything off the team. I like the addition of Teddy Bluger. I think he brings them a little bit of something in the fourth line. I know he doesn't score. That's fine. They don't need him to. And Barbashev. Barbashev has already looked like a steal for them from St. Louis. He's fit in right away. He's been prominent for Vegas. Good move on their part. Arizona, like what Arizona did. Arizona just getting all the draft capital in the world. Connor Mackey, Brett Ritchie picked up from Calgary, of course. Kesselring and Voracek. Voracek, of course, that's his contract only. He's not expected to play. So this is just picking up a player and getting an asset or two in favor of bringing on a player's contract, something Arizona's done for years. Eventually, this will stop. Eventually, Arizona is going to go for it. But between now and then, they're doing what is absolutely within their rights. And so far, they've built up quite the depth in their prospect pool. And this summer, they're going to pick up even more. For Chicago, a lot of names added. So you get Vili Sarajärvi, Andy Welinski, Austin Wagner was added today for future considerations. Hudobin, his contract's brought over from Dallas. Hunter Drew in a minor deal. Bjork is brought over from Buffalo. Again, minor deal there. Joey Anderson brought over from Toronto. Pavel Gogolev. Englund brought over from Colorado. And Zaitsev. They pick up Zaitsev from Ottawa. A lot of names, a lot of players. A lot of this, going to be out the door. Just basically to take roster spots between now and the end of the season. Not a lot expected from any of them in Chicago. But again, Chicago's making deals with that whole rebuild and figuring this out. Colorado picks up Gustav Riedel in a minor deal today as well. Eller picked up for a draft pick earlier in the week. A solid addition for them down the middle. Jack Johnson reacquired. And Kincaid, who has been called up. Kincaid has shown over the last couple years as a number 3 goaltender. You can call him up and he'll play well. So in the event that Francouz is going to be out for a while, I think they can give Kincaid a bit of a run as the backup. Annunen has not really wowed me with his play when he's been thrown in there, and you have to have somebody to spell off Georgiev. Why not Kincaid? I think Kincaid is good. Again, for short stretches, I don't think it hurts. Dallas picks up Scott Reedy. That's in the Peterson deal. Max Domi, which I think for Dallas pretty good pickup there. If he plays anywhere near as well in Dallas as he did in Chicago, that'd be great. I don't think he'll get the ice time in Dallas. I think he'll probably end up on the third line, but we'll see. We'll see what they do, right? And goaltender Dylan Wells, which was part of that deal for Hudobin's rights as well. Minnesota, I like what Minnesota did. I talked about that today. You get Klingberg, you get Sundqvist, you get Nyquist. I think that is solid. So apparently Europeans only welcomed into the fold for Minnesota at the deadline, but Klingberg adds a little bit on the blue line, and so we'll see how things go. Nashville adds Tyson Barrie in the deal with the Oilers. Reed Schaefer added as well, prospect, former first rounder. Asplund brought over from Buffalo for not very much, so no risk there. Isaac Ratcliffe acquired for future considerations, who got traded a lot this week, and Cal Foote in the Tampa Bay deal. So I think Nashville, I think solid deadline for them as sellers, absolutely. But I think Nashville still got a good enough roster. We saw them win last night. I think they're still going to win their share of games. I don't think Nashville's phoning this in. For St. Louis, they pick up Vrana. Didn't have to give up much for Vrana. Zach Dean was acquired from Vegas in the Barbashev deal. Gaudette is acquired from Toronto along with Mikhail Abramov. Sammy Blais, not only acquired by St. Louis, but re-signed. He refines his game, and he signed for another year with St. Louis. Great, perfect. And Hunter Skinner, one of the additions they made as well prior to that. And then the Jets. Now, Kevin Cheveldayoff talked a lot today about how they added and what they were able to do. Nemesnikov and Niederreiter, I don't know that that's enough. The Jets have been absolutely in a tailspin for the last 15, 20 games. I don't know that they're going to be able to pull their way out of that with the additions of Nemesnikov and Niederreiter. We'll see. There's not a lot that gets changed here. I don't know that what we saw at the trade deadline, and I think in the East it's kind of the same story. I don't know that we've seen a power shift at the deadline where we can say, oh, this team is significantly better. I like Edmonton with their defense getting better. I think LA improves their goaltending, which in the Pacific is really important because there isn't really a team in the Pacific that has fantastic goaltending that you look at and say, that's going to win you a Stanley Cup. So that's one thing, too, that I look at with the Pacific that makes it really unpredictable. And I don't mind that Seattle didn't do anything. But again, if those rumors are true about Vancouver not looking at draft picks and not wanting draft picks, that's not going to make the fan base happy. This is a team that needs future capital. Like I said in my video on the Canucks yesterday, this is a team that needs prospects. They need to replenish their prospect pool. They need young players and not just, 25-year-old, 24-year-old. They need 18, 19, 20-year-olds, kids that are going to be able to come in and play 2, 3, 4 years down the road and have that running. You look at teams that have success at the top of the league, whether it's Tampa, whether it's what Detroit was able to do for so long, you always have a really strong prospect pool. You always have a next guy up that's on the way. And I don't see that with Vancouver. But we'll see what happens. Again, Minnesota, I think, made themselves a little bit better. I think Dallas adding Domi was probably a smart move. The one thing with Domi that makes me a little bit concerned, Domi playing easily the best hockey he has in years in Chicago, it doesn't necessarily translate when you go to a new team. It may be that he had a perfect opportunity in Chicago. There was no pressure on him. Maybe that pressure amps up a little bit in Dallas, and maybe his game changes. But we'll see. So who do you think in the West did the best at the deadline? Who do you think did the worst at the deadline? And did anybody's odds of winning or not winning go up or go down? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.